What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of The Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Right now, our biggest sale ever. It is 30% off everything at Grumpy Coffee. Go to grumpycoffee.com.au. We've got pods, we've got whole bean, we've got ground. It is the best. It's the best coffee in the business, if you ask me. Turn that frown upside down with Grumpy Coffee. A massive, massive welcome and a hello and listen to people listening live on SEN 1170. 1620 on the Gold Coast, SENQ 693, or the SEN app. As well as welcome to all our listeners listening live on the SEN app, but listeners that want to listen belatedly, tune in on the podcast, and you can actually subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or where all good podcasts are. We've got a huge show. Obviously, there'll be some Origin chat, kind of mingled throughout the show, but Cobbo, is he on the move from the Broncos? Geez, hasn't that ramped up quickly? Big movements at the Broncos happening right now. Sloan being told he has permission to look elsewhere, which is just, I think it was only last year he signed a 3-year extension or a 2-year extension, backed all the way, and now all of a sudden he's told that he can look elsewhere. You've got guys like Da Silva who've also been told that they can look elsewhere. You've got a swap that fell through. You've got whispers about the Bulldogs potentially targeting Da Silva. And maybe he'll be playing 9. I mean, there is so much going on. We've got coaches under pressure. Seabold at Manly, Payton at the Cowboys, Hazard at the Titans. PNG have a board before the Bears. Is everything running backwards at the NRL? What's doing? And, of course, the great Justin Horo joins the show in the final hour with a full preview of round 17. Give us a text, 0457 736 736. I want to ask you something, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Has the standard of Origin this year been one of the worst standards of rugby league in Origin we've seen in quite a while? I personally think, although Game 2 was exciting, it was super exciting to see the Blues nearly come back and all that great stuff, I think the standard of rugby league in Origin this year has been really poor. I think it's been almost, honestly, I think you'd find some club games that have had a higher standard of rugby league. Maybe not as high intensity to a degree, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Am I being a bit too much of a Debbie Downer? I do think Game 3 is going to be an absolutely explosive. But yeah, I do feel like the standard of rugby league hasn't been as high. And you could even argue, does it reflect in the ladder, where you look at the middle of the ladder, there's like, you are literally 2 wins away from bottom of the ladder, or 2 or 3, all the way into the top 8, which is insane. So let me know, 0457 736 736. Also, let me know, the Brisbane Broncos, looking as though Cobbo will be let go with plenty of suitors. And we are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Alrighty, Cobbo set to depart. The Broncos Karapani, I think it would be pronounced, extends. So the Brisbane Times reports Cobbo has been offered a deal of around $300K to stay at the Broncos, a reduction from his current deal of $650K. And one which seems likely to see him leave the club. Meanwhile, the Courier Mail are reporting North Queensland Chiefs made inquiries with the Cobbo camp about an immediate mid-season transfer in the lead-up to Sunday's clash against the Titans on the Gold Coast. Karapani agreed to terms on Tuesday on a 2-year extension with Brisbane, all but closing the door for Cobbo's hopes. Cobbo flew to Sydney for talks with the Dragons, but the Cowboys and Dolphins are more likely destinations as a Queensland club. It looks unlikely that any club will secure Cobbo before next season, with the deadline less than a week away. I've also heard little birdie whispers that the one club he wasn't allowed to go early to was the Dolphins. So there's just that. You look at this and you wonder, why wouldn't the Dolphins be in the mix here? What's going on with that? I heard little whispers that the Broncos were not okay with him going to the Broncos early. Listen, what has surprised me the most, and look, I get it, we're all in the media or whatever, but I was watching NRL 360 and look, the amount of times we flip-flop on releasing players early. So, the general sentiment on 360 was last night was like, oh, come on, mate. If he's not happy, let him go. If you're not going to play him, just let him go. And it's like, what? Did we not just spend the first half of the season talking about how contracts are worth nothing and that we should make players stay and stick them out? I was very surprised at that. And maybe it's my Broncos bias, but personally, I can't see a world where if you're a Brisbane Broncos side, and I love Andrew Webster actually brought this up on 360. He's like, mate, the Broncos aren't out of the fight. We could make the 8. As if you don't want Selwyn Cobbo sitting in reserve grade just in case there's an injury. Like, I don't think anyone at the Broncos is sitting there saying Cobbo's never playing again. See you later. They've actually offered him a contract. Yeah, it's massive unders, but they've still offered him something to stay, and it's not minimum. And so it's like to suggest that he's just so far on the outer that he's never getting back in that jersey. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, geez, all of a sudden we care about, how the player is feeling. It was funny. Being a bit facetious here, but all jokes aside, look, if I'm being honest, and I say this with as much respect as possible, I actually understand the 300K offer from the Broncos because you're paying him 650, 700K on his potential. Now, he has had moments and stretches even where he's been outstanding, Selwyn Cobbo. He really, really has. And everyone knows that watches him for a couple of games will say, mate, this guy seriously could be one of the best outside backs in the game. The problem is that consistency. It really is. And so I actually understand the Broncos going, listen, we can't afford to pay for potential. And also, that's been the Broncos' biggest problem lately is they've been spending their money in the wrong places. The template for success is so obvious in rugby league. It's put money in the key positions and then try to make it work in these other positions. And I just think that if all your money's going to go to Reece Walsh, Ezra, Reynolds if he stays, even though he's on a bit unders, but guys like Moser, Haas, you cannot afford to be paying multiple outside backs 700-800K. And so I can understand why the Broncos have just gone, listen, like we can pay for, like 300K is what you would pay for a very, very promising outside back that has a lot of potential. And I know Selwyn Cobbo is technically past that point, but I still feel like anyone talking about Selwyn is that the first thing they always say is he's got so much potential. And so, and we've all heard about, off the field, sometimes he struggles to fully engage with the professional mindset of playing first grade. And so until that is sorted, he's always going to be the guy with potential. But once he does sort that, he's going to be the guy that's absolutely destroying teams. And look, I'm confident that Selwyn can go to another club and eventually he'll probably be killing it. And I know there'll be Broncos fans going, oh, we shouldn't have let him go. But in my mind, it's like, salary cap, we need to sort our salary cap out of the Brisbane Broncos. And we cannot afford to be paying a guy 700K that isn't consistently an 8 out of 10 every single week. But Maestro, would love to get your thoughts, mate.
Look, I completely concur with you on the fact that I can understand the offer from the Broncos, and hello to you and the listeners today. I wonder what his value is going to be because the offer, and you go into the market as a player, right, and you're looking for overs. You start at a high bar, but the rumour going around is that the gap between what Cobbo is asking for and what teams are prepared to pay for him at the moment is sizable, right? So part of that is going to be coming to a happy medium between what the player wants and a club is willing to give him, given what you've talked about with his inconsistency. And I completely agree with you as well on the fact the Broncos shouldn't let him go early. Like, you want that backup. That, top 8,
Crazy.
top 4 if they go on a run. That's how tight the table is this season. So they'd be crazy to let him go early. Another report, you've heard the whispers about the Dolphins. There was a report yesterday that the Cowboys were sniffing around to get him early as well, and that's been quashed as well. So they clearly don't want him to go beforehand. I'll be really interested later. I want to have a bit of a chat with Justin Horo about whether we need to formalise this trade period because there are so many names floating around at the moment ahead of June 30, and that could make a real impact if any of them do go on what happens down the final stretch with everything so congested at the moment.
Yeah, I don't mind the carnage that is rugby league where there's no trade window, so we're just always talking about trades. But I do understand the structure of it all. Just back to Cobbo.
Yep.
Like, I cannot understand. Like, it's not like this bloke is getting paid unders right now and, be nice, let him go because he can get this big wicket somewhere else. Like, he's on a big wicket at the Broncos, playing reserve grade, yes, but he's getting paid a good, apparently, reportedly around the 600K mark.
And the other report is he doesn't particularly want to leave.
Yeah, I don't understand this push for, just let him go. It's like, mate, can you imagine, okay, we've got one outside back that goes down, or even two, and we get to bring in Dean Mariner and Selwyn Cobbo? Like, all of us, like, why would we do that? Especially when we've already paid this guy, or, Selwyn, so much for the whole year so far. Like, we have paid him, if it is reported that he's on 600K, we've already paid him, let's say, 400K.
Yeah.
Why would we give that to someone else when we've already invested that much money in him? It doesn't make any sense to me.
The only answer I could give you there is there a spot the Broncos need filled? Is there a glaring hole? Now, the fact they've got the sort of spine that they wanted at the start of the season with Hunt playing hooker next to Mam and Reynolds, is there another gap that you could go to a team and go, hey, if we're able to grab this fella, is there a position you'd be looking at there? Because we know the quality of the pack's there. Like, there's no glaring hole for the Broncos. It's
there
like
is.
you reckon edge back row?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
So that's where you'd be looking.
Okay, got some text here. Truth is, Cobbo has been unhappy for a while on several fronts. He scored 35 tries in 42 games in 2022 and 23 season combined. You're making it sound like he was unhappy from the beginning of this week. Fresh start. So on one hand, you're saying he hasn't been happy, but he's still played well, and then he stopped being happy, so he hasn't been playing well? Because you're saying that he hasn't been happy for quite a while, but in 2022 and 23, he played really well. Fresh start, Mike. P.S. Why are you saying we when you talk about the Broncos? A bit often. You know why I'm saying we, brother? Because I played for them. How about that? I get the right to say we because I used to play for them. In regard to him being a bit unhappy, I just, like, that may be true, but again, he's getting paid a good wicket. He's like, I just don't, just being a bit unhappy at work doesn't mean that you just automatically get to go somewhere. And hasn't that been the whole push for the first half of the year of just because a player is a little bit unhappy, he should not just be allowed to be released immediately? That's been the whole yarn. And now all of a sudden it's flipped on its head and people are going, oh, he's a little bit unhappy, let him go. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, got some more text here. Cobbo should go to South or Melbourne. Would love to see him under Bellamy or Bennett. Plus, if Brisbane 300K is to be believed, he should go to a team that wants him. I would love to see him under Bennett. I don't think he would work under Bellamy. No, if he doesn't work under Maguire, I don't think he'd work under Bellamy, especially living in Melbourne. That's an extra, a little bit away from home. I think Bennett is really, if there's one coach that would just turn him into a superstar, it's probably Bennett for me. And I think that when you actually look at the outside backs for South, you've got Tyrone Munro on the other way. You've got Johnston on the other wing that's at the end of his career to a degree. That's where you could see it. Now, there are reports that he wants to play fullback. I just think that if he wants to play fullback, I can totally respect that. As a player, when I was coming through, I really loved enjoying playing fullback. I didn't mind. Whatever needed for the team. And I'm sure Selwyn's the same. But, he did get an opportunity at fullback at the Broncos, and I don't know if he was fit enough, if I'm being honest. And so if you do want to play fullback, you've got to put your best foot forward physically to show that you can play fullback. And so I think that, and I understand that, when you're training a whole preseason as a centre, then you get moved to fullback or wing or whatever. But in saying that, it's not that much difference where your body should be doesn't matter where you play, whether it's wing, centre or fullback, cardiovascular-wise and physically, your body should be in as good as nick as possible. Okay, got some more text here. Afternoon, Kempy. I'm hearing the Bunnies are looking at make space for Cobbo, but as Bulldog supporter, I would take Cobbo. Imagine Cobbo at full potential in that back line. Kempy, have you heard of Makasini? Do you know if he's any good, if he would make the Tigers side? I haven't heard of him, unfortunately. Got another text here. Yes, mate, you played for them and they also sacked you. They also never hired you, brother. They also never hired you. Okay, now, in regards to the South one, as I said, I like that. I really do, because I do believe Wayne Bennett is really such a unique coach in his ability to just get the best out of players and understand that certain players just tick in certain different ways. I mean, how we a really good example is, and I know he hasn't necessarily set the world alight, but look at a guy like Bud Sullivan that has gone there and he's been really solid many, many years, all his potential, so much so that South are potentially looking to keep him. And so I would love to see Selwyn Cobbo at South Sydney Rabbitohs. And also, you look at that proud Indigenous heritage there as well. You've got Latrell Mitchell there that would probably be able to relate to a guy with all this talent, but at the same time, very connected to where they're from. And so I think South Sydney Rabbitohs, that's probably my preference for Selwyn. Because, although I don't think that he should just be able to get released immediately, at the same time, I want to see him happy at a new club. And so I personally would love to see Selwyn at South Sydney. I think Cowboys is also a good shout just due to the fact of you're up out of the spotlight. You're still in Queensland. There's less pressure. I think one thing that you have to, I guess, put into the consideration is when you're at Brisbane Broncos, there's a lot of pressure, And some players, really enjoy it, really love it. And some players, they don't want all that media scrutiny. They just want to play footy. And Selwyn does look like a guy he doesn't want to do all that media and stuff. He just wants to go out, enjoy his rugby league, and, get home when he can get home. And so I think South Sydney is probably going to be the best stop for him. Okay, we're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to talk about. Sloan given freedom to test the market. Da Silva also freedom to test the market. Plenty more to talk about. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. We've got a 30% off, our biggest ever sale, 30% off everything at grumpycoffee.com.au. Order online, will be in your house in the next 48 hours. Okay, Dragons coach Flanagan has given Tyrell Sloan the freedom to test the player market. The try scorer Sloan is free to explore his options at a rival club despite being contracted with the Red V until the end of 2026. The major development has emerged in the wake of Sloan being dropped from the first-grade team to face the Eels at Wynn Stadium on Saturday. Sloan's manager, Mimas, is believed to have met with the new Dragons CEO, Tim Watsford, on Tuesday, where it's determined by the club that the 23-year-old will be granted permission to speak with rival clubs. I have to say, these are I definitely understand where the Dragons are coming from. You've got a guy, he's on, 400 or 500K. You're hoping that he'd probably be the heir to Gutho as he moves from fullback. But at the same time, as much as you want to put the responsibility on Sloan, the same amount of accountability has to be with the Dragons, because they re-signed him believing that they could get the best out of him, and it hasn't worked out. And so, in my opinion, that's a failure on the Dragons side, because they had an opportunity to not re-sign him. What was it, last year? 2 years ago? I think it was last year. I think it was last year that they re-signed him. They had the opportunity not to do that, and they did. And they re-signed him on a pretty decent wicket. And so it's a bit parallel. I think Selwyn Cobbo is substantially past where Sloan is in regards to where he's at in his career. But it is a little bit similar, where the Broncos are kind of in the same boat as Sloan, the Dragons were last year, where they could have gone, you know what, let's stick with Cobbo, let's get the potential out of him. But they've gone, okay, we're not going to do that. And this is where I think that, as much as you want to go, Sloan isn't performing, this, that, and the next thing, I think the Dragons need to be held accountable. Like, that's a miss. That's a massive miss. And I don't think all of their things have been a miss in the re-signing. I think Gutho's been a great signing. I think Val's been good. I think Cookie's been good as well. I think that outside of these last few weeks, their season's actually been quite good. But, yeah, definitely probably one that they would want back. With Sloan, I personally think, mate, just go over to Super League, get your confidence back. He'll kill it. He will kill it. And then maybe come back into first grade, because he's had quite a long time to fulfill his potential in first grade. And his last contract, he was essentially signed on potential. And I think it's just one of those situations. Now, look, you could make the argument, hey, let him at least go to a new club and see if a new environment will help him out. And that could be the case, maybe. In saying that, 1 or 2 years in the Super League and just get that confidence back. He'll be 25 years old, mature, become a bit more of a man, come back into NRL. I just think that with Sloan, he's got so much talent. He should be in the NRL. He really should be. What do you reckon, Maestro?
No, I agree with you on that point, Kepi, but it's been the thing that Shane Flanagan's talked about basically since he took over, is that there are just too many defensive deficiencies. And you can't carry someone at that level if you're going to be a top 8 side. They've flipped him through positions. They've tried to make things. I don't necessarily agree with you on the fact that the Dragons have got to cop the responsibility for this one. They've signed him on the 2-year deal thinking, okay, this is what we're going to try and get out of him. And at the end of it, they've gone, or even before the end of it, they've gone, no, this is not going to work. So I think Tyrell's got to take some responsibility for that, because
I think I said it's both.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you think the Dragons should take no accountability in the fact that it hasn't worked out?
No, not no accountability. But I think Sloan, has been given the opportunity, recalled by Flano a couple of times, shifted into different positions. They've tried to work around the stuff that's happened with Gutho coming in, thinking he'll be a role model for him, and it hasn't worked. Now, I don't know what's happening inside the club, right? So maybe the development pathway has not been as strong as you hoped.
We'll put it this way. Would you, in regards to this specific re-signing, would you give it a pass mark or a fail mark? If you had, let's say you were about to review the people that re-signed, that made the decision to re-sign Sloan.
I don't think you could have looked at him a year ago and gone, you don't re-sign him.
I think there are many people that would have.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm interested. Dragons fans, I think they would have been pretty pillared if they had let him go at the end of last season.
But that's the thing, though. It's not the fans' jobs to make the right call in that situation. There are quite a lot of people that were surprised at Sloan getting re-signed.
Okay.
And I think that if you were to sit, if you were to review the people that made the decision to re-sign him, and now it's like I can't believe in any world where you could say that's a pass mark when they're releasing him a year and a half early.
Yeah, you're right.
That's not a pass mark. And I'm not saying that like Sloan definitely should take responsibility for it not working out, but I also think the Dragons do as well. That means it's ruined their salary cap to a degree, where they might have been able to keep certain players, not keep certain players. I just think that I understand why they're releasing him now, but put it this way: what new have they learnt about Sloan that they didn't already know when they re-signed him?
No, that's a good point, Kevin. I'll give you that. I'll give you one on that point. I don't know. New coach? I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe a new coach. And that's where you go, listen, there are quite a few players at the Dragons over the last decade that haven't reached their
more
potential.
Senior players around him?
Yeah, potentially. And so maybe it is a new club, fresh start, fresh beginning, but I don't think it is that. I think what I will say is Sloan's I guess he has all the power as to whether he plays NRL or not.
100%.
Because there are some players that don't have the talent, even close to the talent that Sloan has, that you could say, you know what, a different coach could get the best out of him. But Sloan playing at 8 out of 10 of his total talent could play NRL. And so that's why I think go overseas, grow up, get a bit more mature. And I don't say grow up in an insulting way, just genuinely. Like when I was 23, bro, I was a baby brain. Like compared to what I was when I was 27, like honestly, night and day. I don't think I genuinely considered myself a man until late 20s.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds silly, but that's just, at least that was my development.
Yeah.
And so I just think if you go overseas, it's all on you then, because there is no excuse as to why he couldn't be one of the best Super League players. Get your confidence. Go look at guys like Bevan French.
Yeah.
Go look at guys like, what's his name? Dufty's gone all right over there. Field is killing it over there. And so I just think living in another country, it grows you up really quickly as well. And so that's what I think is probably the best for him. And he's been given quite a few chances at the Dragons to prove that defensively he's got the right mindset, and it just hasn't seemed to work out for him. So, as I said, so much talent. He really does. Like, he is a super talented player, good young kid. But maybe because it's come so easy to him for so long, you know, like, for example, when you re-sign a guy for reportedly $400,000-500K, after the fact that he was already in and out of the first grade side, you're reinforcing to him that you don't actually have to fully put your body on the line to get a contract here. Or you don't have to fully commit to being the best version of yourself, because we've just given you a 2.5 or 3 year deal or whatever it was when you were already in and out of first grade. So that's where I think, go overseas, Super League. He will absolutely tear the Super League apart. He'll grow up. He'll pretty much kill it. He'll pretty much kill it. He'll be more mature. And then I think that a 25-year-old Sloan that is really keen to be the best version of himself, he could come back to the NRL and set the whole thing alight. That's how talented he is.
He sits there as someone who could be a real value buy. Even next year, I think, if he skips that English experiment and comes into a club where he's not the project, and there's a lot of focus on him at the Dragons because he was the great white hope for a very long time. It'll be interesting seeing how his attitude shifts as the attitude to him inside the football club that he goes to changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, listen, I think that it's going to be interesting to see, I guess, what happens in the future with the Dragons and the outside backs. Will they go in the market? Will they not? Now, Ramsey in reserve grade.
Yes.
And where I've been critical of the Dragons, I've got to give the Dragons so much credit for that re-signing. I think it, there's been so much, they cop so much criticism of the Dragons. And look, some of it is definitely fair. But for them to stick around Ramsey the way they have, I think they just deserve so much credit for that, because they don't get enough credit for the right things they do. They always get called out for the wrong things they do with the Dragons. I think they deserve credit for that. And hopefully we see him back in first grade. Apparently he's killing it in reserve grade. Now, I've got his text here. As a Dragons fan, I'm happy Sloan is on the way. Sloan doesn't put in. He has pace, and that's about it. That's his only talent. Not good with the hard yards, defensive misses and bad reads, continual high ball drops. He's had so many chances, and happy to see him leave. I think he has more talent than just speed, but I do think defensively, and also like him dropping high balls, that shouldn't happen, because he's a very coordinated guy. Like it's just concentration. It really is just concentration. Okay, we're going to head to a break. Give us a text, 0457 736 736. Where could Sloan end up? Where do you think it's going to suit him best to get the best version of himself? And we'll see you on the other side of the break. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Currently having a 30% off everything sale, and it ends this Friday. Do not miss out. Order coffee at grumpycoffee.com.au. It'll get to your house within the next 24 to 48 hours, guys, and it's the best coffee in all the land. Okay, Da Silva. basically told that he has permission to, look elsewhere. He's still signed until 27, I'm pretty sure. Apologies. Sorry about that. In regards to Da Silva, what surprises me about this is that I can't believe that the Tigers have told him he has permission to look elsewhere when he can own, why not just wait till November 1 to do this? Because they haven't re-signed Appy yet. And what could happen, and I hope this doesn't happen, Tigers fan, I'm not praying for it to happen, but what happens if Appy turns around and goes, I just got upgraded a massive offer from Perth, they bumped their offer up to $800K a year, 3-year deal or whatever, and he says no to the Tigers. If you're Da Silva, you're going, mate, and then the Tigers come back and say, oh, no, we want to keep you. You go, no way. No way am I going to stay when you already told me to leave. I'm not understanding why they needed desperately to come out publicly and say he can look elsewhere when they can just wait till November 1. It makes, what do they gain by saying he can go and look elsewhere right now? What does the club gain from that?
This smacks of on a smaller scale, the Angus Crichton situation last year at the Roosters. You remember when they were signing David Fifita for Fifita backflips, and it's like, oh, Angus, we got more money for you. Thankfully, Angus is a great guy and he's playing very good footy. And the Roosters might have escaped one there. I don't think the Tigers are going to be so lucky if they find themselves in the same situation. And Appy's already talked about his interest in going over to Perth potentially.
I don't understand it. I'm not sure what they gain. And look, I understand the whole Galvin situation. When it happened, I was on board with them coming out on the forefront and just basically letting everyone know what was going on. In hindsight, though, and I want to be clear, in hindsight, with all the information we have, that was probably the wrong play. And that's why I don't understand this play. It's like, even if it is the case that, privately you guys have just agreed that he can look elsewhere, what do you gain by this being public? I just don't understand. Why not say to him, listen, we'll wait till November 1. Let's wait until November 1, see what happens. You don't need to get in a bidding war. You can wait until Appy Coruscant situation is sorted as well. It just, this reeks of a potential to go absolutely pear-shaped. And I would love to sit down with the Tigers and go, what did you gain by doing this? Maestro, what do you reckon they gained by doing this? He's still signed to end of 26.
The only strange warped thinking I can come up with is maybe they're going, Appy, our trust in you, bro. You've got the reins, but you're putting yourself in a terrible negotiating position if that is the thinking. That's the only... Or they've got a promising junior they think can come in and fill that role in 2 years' time. But I don't know. I don't know their system well enough. Yeah, and more promising than Tallyn Da Silva. He's already stepped up to NRL level. He's already shown he's up to it. They've got themselves in a real pickle here if the Appy deal falls through.
Yeah.
That's a big if, right?
But I don't know about that. If I'm Appy Coruscant and I get offered 3-year deal, $800K a year or something from Perth, and I get offered a 1-year extension from the Tigers that's worth $700K, mate, you're because Appy's getting to the point where, mate, it really is no longer about loyalty. It's about getting money for your family.
Yep.
And he has every right to do that. He has broken his body, smashed himself to pieces for over a decade to get to this point. And that's where I'm just so surprised at it. So, look, I understand look, let's say it all works out. Because fingers crossed it does. Let's say it works out. I get it. Appy Coruscant, if they were to let him go in this current environment, I just don't think that they could afford to let Appy Coruscant go. I don't think they've got enough senior players to let him go. If you were to let Appy go, you really got Luai. Clemmer's probably in his last year, isn't he?
Yes, off contract.
So you've got Luai as a senior player. Dewey, pretty much, kind of. Outside of that, I'm trying to think. It really is Luai as your older senior kind of player that's won premierships. And that's where I think they looked at it and just said, yeah, okay, look, we would have loved to have Da Silva long term, but we just cannot afford, when it comes to senior player and leadership, to lose a guy like Appy over the next 2 years.
Is that where the conversation about Adam Reynolds came in for that short period? Recognising that shortage in leadership at the moment?
Yeah, potentially. That could have been it. The fact that they missed out on Reno, maybe that played a part in keeping Appy.
Doesn't really make sense in terms of how you're setting up your footy team, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, Fainu has been outstanding coming in last week. Now, I got some text here. Kempy, some big rumours in the Tiger world. Tallyn has been tabled a 3-year upgrade, $550K a year. Wants to be a starter, ain't happening. The club is happy for him to entertain offers. The club wants to keep him. The player market doesn't stop. Jared Hayward signed to top 30.
There we
Kid, who
go.
was the one that tackled Garvin in schoolboy final. Then Fayenu out bail, 26 years old. I mean, that's a lot of like what ifs. Again, like I understand where you're coming from, the guy that just texted in, but at the same time, you could still just say, listen, we're going to wait till November 1. Give yourself time. Give yourself time. Oh my God, Clemmer's at the Dragons.
Yes.
What am I talking about?
Last year of his deal. That was
what
right.
an idiot! Why would I think Clemmer is still? What an idiot! Sorry, guys, that's really poor by me. Got some more texty. Afternoon denim. My thoughts on Cobbo. He appears to be a little unfit and disinterested. 300K of the Broncos would be a fair price. As I said, I was surprised at the amount of people that go, oh, that's disrespectful. That's this. It's just like, unfortunately, I don't know if it is. Like, I really don't. Like, I know he's played Origin. Everyone knows what his ceiling is. But it's just like, when you've got a salary cap where essentially you can only really pay one outside back around 700K, he needs to be like all in.
Yep.
All in. Okay, got some more texty. Number 1, it was Da Silva's manager that started the conversation. Number 2, the Tigers have a phenomenal young hooker. They'll be ready in 2 years. Number 3, Abby will re-sign 1 year and then he's able to move on to the Bears. Oh, Appy. Move on to the Bears the following year. It's a non-topic. Okay. I mean, I guess, bro. Like, again, I don't know what this... I don't know why the club would give him a permission now. Like, what do they gain from it? And I know the manager started the conversation, but again, what did the Tigers gain from going, no matter what, you can go somewhere else where we're done?
I reckon the Galvin deals had a bit to do with that. They don't want to get caught in the same situation where they seem to be holding on to a player who's very, very keen to go.
Yeah, but I don't even think they need... Again, he's re-signed till 2026.
Yeah.
And just say, yeah, we're waiting till November 1.
Once bitten, I reckon. Twice shy.
But that's what's hilarious, though, is them announcing the Galvin thing is what made that all happen.
Yeah.
If they never came out publicly and said, we're done with Galvin, it wouldn't have given them the ammo to do what happened with all that stuff. So, yeah, I guess... Oh, settle down. Dave, Clemmer is at Saints, you muppet. Settle down, David. Settle down, mate. Just have a grubby coffee. Turn that frown upside down. Alrighty, we're going to head to a break. After the break, there's a bunch of coaches that are under pressure. We're going to talk about each one. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions to save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Got some texts here. Tigers are taking a big risk. Remember, Manly threw all their eggs in the Fayenu basket and he got arrested. It left them having to manufacture Croker into a hooker, which worked out well, but watching Appy go on to win premierships and represent New South Wales sure stung Manly supporters. It's a great point. It's a really good point. I know it's a little bit different because of the circumstances, but you just never know what's going to happen in rugby league. And so, got some more text here. Maybe seeing as Da Silva as Lockie Galvin's best mate, it's the issue. I doubt it. I really doubt it. You've got to be pretty immature as an organisation to be like, oh, he's his best mate, so he's got to go. And also, to my understanding, I think Da Silva wanted to stay. It's just more about trying to keep Appy Coruscant and Da Silva. And so I don't think there's any truth to that. Jared Hayward is a freak, though. Love you Kempy. Coffee is cracker, the Maltese Tiger. Thanks, bro. He might be. He really might be. I guess the risk you play, though, with that, here's a really good example. So you look at the Broncos, and like they are such a club where it goes, mate, look at all these young guys. You know, they've got Blake Moser coming through, they've got Pia Cora coming through, and so we can move Catewell on because Pia Cora's coming in, he's going to kill it, and Jordan Ricky, he's also young, he's going to get into the best year of his career, and it hasn't really worked out like that. It hasn't really worked out like that. Now Pia Cora is definitely maturing. Moser, we've just re-signed, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you can expect. And the vice versa, you know, maybe this Hayward guy comes in and kills it. We don't know, but it's just until you get into first grade and play a full season, it's very hard to say how much, how good they'll be. Got some more texts here. Hey Kempy, is there anyone taking the talk up to the NRL about the removal of points for the bye? Giving points for a bye, in my opinion, is just pointless, and it just adds confusion to ladder position for each team. Now, that's from Paul from Wynnum. I think the same thing. Like, I cannot believe we give points for the bye. I was told, I think there's a reason for it. I don't know. Someone broke down some like, Matty's going to text me the reason for it. There's some strange reason for it. That's why they do give points for a bye. But I hate it, mate. I really do. It just makes because when you look at the table, like for example, the Cowboys, I think last week were 6th. But when you added in the buys that they'd had, they're actually like 12th or something. So here's Matty. Matty says, so your team doesn't move down the ladder if you have a buy. Okay, so yeah, if you have a buy, you get no points. See, I don't care if my team moves down the ladder. At least it's clearer. Like, we got a buy this week, okay, so we don't get 2 points. But yeah, I guess that must be the reason. So you have a buy and you're sitting there and you're going, oh my God, all the teams around us had a win. We've just dropped down 4 places. But I reckon that would be less confusing than me having to do bloody maths every single time I look at the ladder going, okay, who's got the most wins and blah, blah, blah. But I'm with you. Okay, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to wrap up the first hour, and then heading into the second hour, we are going to do a deep dive into the coaches under pressure. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Going to wrap up the show. We've spoken about Selwyn Cobbo at the Broncos. Is it the right reason to let him go? Should they let him go early? We spoke about Sloan and his situation at the Dragons. We spoke about Da Silva and the Tigers. So make sure to check out the first hour on our podcast. Subscribe to the Captain's Run. And also got some text here. Kay Kemby, there's no perfect solution around awarding points for not a buy. As rugby league fans, we always find an excuse. E.g., I'm a Raiders fan, and I said to a Bulldogs, you're only first of your buy because of your buys. The response I got, you only have more wins than us because you've played more games. That's why I think then having buys, not give points, would work. Because you would just go, you just know exactly where you're at. Okay, got another text here. Hate to go back and forth. What has Tallyn Da Silva actually proven in first grade? Junior that loves the club, that will be 22 at the end of 28, doesn't want to develop behind a 3-time premiership winning hooker. It's weird. Also, Gus has been visiting Vaianu as prison basically for the last 4 years, recruiting non-stop the Maltese Tiger. P.S. Sloan to Bunnies, you heard it here first. I actually think Da Silva's been quite good in first grade. I think he's been shown that he's got a lot of talent. His attack definitely is up to first grade. Defense needs a bit of work, but that's like most rookies coming in. I also think that, he has every right to go, okay, I want to get a bigger contract elsewhere. I'm not willing to wait 3 years to get into first grade. I know we're very quick to tell rookies, wait. But what happens if they never get offered that big contract again? You just never know. So I understand what he's saying, but I understand why he's going to look at other options. Okay, we're going to go to a break. After the break, it's a deep dive on the coaches under pressure. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. We are doing our biggest sale ever, and it ends this Friday. It is 30% off everything. Go to grumpycoffee.com.au. We've got pods, we've got whole beans, we've got ground. We have never done a sale this big before. It ends this Friday at grumpycoffee.com.au. You order online. It'll be in your house in the next 24 to 48 hours, most likely. Okay, coaches under pressure. First, it's Manly Anthony Seibold. We've got some audio here from Tom Trbojevic talking about his move to centre.
It's a decision that I think when you look at it, obviously, playing footy and playing centre is on a footy field, so it's no different to me.
There you go, Tommy Turbo. And look, I understand. The thing is this, you don't want your superstars, they don't get to where they are without being super competitive and wanting to play their key position. So I understand. You can hear the frustration a little bit in his voice. And I respect that. As a competitor, the last thing you want, like, who cares? Yeah, it's all good. But I do think that there is, they've given every opportunity they can for him to get his body right at fullback. And I just think the key for Tommy Turbo is I would rather Tommy Turbo play 7 out of 10, but a whole season of footy, than 9 out of 10, but 10 games. The key is just getting games under his belt, getting his body, just used to the week in, week out playing NRL. And I think, because I actually said years ago I would have moved him to centre. And it's a mixture of two reasons. It's the fact that you run less Ks, so you're less likely to have soft tissue injury. But also, it probably increases the likelihood that he's going to just be on the field week in, week out. And that's the key for me, because this is what you could do at Manly. First of all, Lehigh has changed quite a bit because he's so good. But first of all, what you could do is, all you need to do is get inside the 8 with your Manly. And then week 1 of the finals comes around, boom, you just put Tommy straight back to fullback, or not even week 1, maybe a week before. And you just say, mate, don't even think about your body, like whether it's, feeling a bit tired or worried about injury. Just go hell for the leather. And you just try and, if you can just get him through 4 games, that's all you need to get to a grand final or win a grand final, then you can make it work. And I just think at the moment, when you've got that much investment in a key player, it's all just about getting him on the field. Now, I think he'll go great at centre. I really do. I think he'll go great. What do you reckon, Maestro?
Every time he's played there in high-level football, Kempy's done a great job. Did it for the Kangaroos in the World Cup last year. Did it for New South Wales, which such great success a few years ago as well. So I don't think the switch will be any cop. I'm just interested to see how that affects what the team are doing out there, because a lot of Manly's last play options were based around Tommy being able to basically be floating around to get on the end of things and create. Will he be given that same license playing in the centres? Arguably, he hasn't been as effective. Well, not even arguably, he hasn't been as effective in that role this year. So maybe you're not losing as much as you were when you think about this move being mooted at the start of the season. You're right, and you're right about Lehigh. He's changed everything the way he's been playing.
Yeah, it's interesting because even Tommy at 7 out of 10, he's still running for 245 metres.
Yeah,
which is insane. It just shows you. He is truly one of the rare people that can be 7 out of 10 and still, if most other fullbacks did that, you'd be like, bro, why are you moving him from fullback? He's running for 245 metres. But yeah, I think it's just time. They have been so patient with him.
Yeah.
So patient with just trying to make it work. Now, in regards to Seabold being under pressure, look, the concern I have for Seabold is that it just seems like his teams. I would understand, you look at Peyton, for example, at the Cowboys. And granted, Peyton has made the finals every year he's been there, except for one. But, I don't think anyone is sitting there going, this team is playing the way Peyton is telling them to play. And I'm not suggesting Seabold saying go out there and not play consistently or whatever. But, even at the Broncos, he would have this, great start to the year, and then they'd just be up and down and up and down. And I look to the Manly, and it seems like a similar situation. And I just reckon the one weakness in Seabold's game as a coach, and look, I'm not there week in, week out, so this is just outside looking in. Take this with a grain of salt. But just the vibe and feeling I get from his press conferences, there's not enough talk about the jersey, and there's not enough talk about the intangible stuff. For all of his smarts, and there's no denying Seabold is probably one of the smartest coaches in the game. And his X's and O's is all great. But just when I hear reports about 7-minute meetings and dossiers, and I'm just like, mate, that's the last thing a young football team needs is 7-minute meetings and dossiers. It sounds silly, but they need a night on the beers. I know, they need to come together.
Yeah.
Skill is not the problem at Manly. Skill is not the problem. Okay, you could look at the forward pack and go, they're missing players, there's injuries or whatever. But talent, when they're playing at their best, they literally beat the best teams in the comp.
Yep.
So talent and skill is not an issue. What is an issue is turn up for your mate every single week. And I don't think 7-minute meetings and dossier helps that. What do you reckon, Maestro?
No, I tend to agree. This is set up for that speech, right? These next 2 weeks, Manly have a favourable draw. They're at home for these next two games. The early kick-off Friday against the Tigers, and then a Sunday afternoon at 4 Points, which is going to be packed regardless against Souths. Two winnable games against teams that have been in and out of form this season, although Souths are getting some players back. I just think this is the make or break. If Manly lose, tempted to say either of these games, then it puts them in a real hole. But if suddenly once you win two, such as the closeness of the compass we kept talking about, they're right back in the finals mix. And as you say, if they can get things steering on the right track, they are good enough to beat those teams right up the top on their day.
Is there a concern, though, that they sneak into the finals and they get to week 2 and you go, okay, let's go again? And it's just
it does seem a repeat. We seem to be stuck in this, I don't want to say obscurity, but it is a bit like that. We're not going up, we're not going down. It's stagnant at the moment. So, and there's a list of players coming off contract. There's going to be a chance to revitalise that roster somewhat over the next year or so. They need to make a decision pretty soon, the board, on whether Anthony Seibold's the man to lead that.
And I think in Seibold's defence, in all of this, if you're a head coach and you're seeing all this stuff get leaked, you're like, this is clearly coming from someone inside the club that wants me gone. And that's where I get worried that the position has become untenable, because it's like, how can you expect me to be all in, the head coach, lead us out of this dark time, where all this stuff's getting leaked out? For example, how did we all know about the 7-minute meetings, the dossiers, the fact that he wants to be a GM apparently, not a head coach? All that stuff is coming from the faction that clearly is not a fan of him at the club, in my opinion anyway.
I was hoping that a lot of this had been dealt with when Tony Mesterov came in and a few people moved on. But Manly are one of the sneaky teams in the competition where this happens. The West Tigers get a bad rap. The Dragons get a bad rap for this sort of stuff. Manly are as good as anyone in this sort of stuff coming out. And it's another test for Siebes.
Just imagine being Siebes. And as I said, this is coming from a guy that's quite critical of Siebes as a coach. And at the start of the year, I wanted to give him all the chance in the world. I really did. I think there's a lot of potential there. But like how unfair it is on Siebes that he's going to read the headlines the day of that it happens, exactly who's getting dropped, where they're getting dropped to, the Tommy Turbo's getting moved to centres, the minutes of the meeting was 7, and there's dossiers getting released. Oh, and by the way, he wants to be the GM. Like, that is an absolute avalanche of anti-Seabold propaganda, essentially.
Yeah.
And I just, like, the thing that frustrates me with that is, like, whether you agree or disagree with Seabold should be coach, the frustrating thing is this. How do you expect as a club to be the best version of yourself when you're already trying to get rid of the coach like this? When you're already putting your own intentions above what's best for the club? That's what I don't get. Because basically what's happening is Seabold's getting positioned to be pushed out so that the people that push him out look like they've made the right decision. They're already making, it's what's it called? The great Noam Chomsky talked about it. Manufactured consent. Manufactured consent.
That's a ripper.
Where basically there's this kind of idea being created towards Manly fans that Seabold's the wrong man for the job. Therefore, if you fire him, it's the right decision. And it's like
the same thing happened with Des. We talked about this last week. Same thing happened with Des. Like, Siebes is not faultless in all of this, but there are higher powers at Manly who need to take a good hard look at themselves and how this keeps continuing to unfold.
Yep.
It's remarkable.
Well, and you look at all the best clubs, they're no leaks. Like essentially no leaks out of all the best clubs, all the ones that are struggling. And what leaks, the leaks are evidence of people putting their own self before the club. Because even if you disagree with how things are run, putting that information out into the public does not, even if you are correct, even if you are totally right, it still doesn't help the club right now. It doesn't help the club right now. And that's why I think. Anyway, all right. Now let's get to the next coach under pressure, Des Hasler. Now, the tough thing about this is that, like, if you move on another coach at the Titans, you're basically saying to the players, just play crap and we'll just move coaches on. Because, unfortunately, they have gotten worse under Des Hasler. So, look, maybe Desi Hasler's lost his magic. I don't know. But the concern I have is like, Holbrook couldn't make it work. Desi Hasler couldn't make it work. Like, who could you possibly bring in to make it work? Because this playing group just doesn't seem to want to respond. I mean, look, the Holbrook one I was always a bit on the fence about. I understood it because you're getting in a guy like Desi Hasler. Maybe it's a mixture of both things. Maybe Desi Hasler magic is a bit lost. But at the same time, it's kind of like, are you sending the wrong message to the playing group if Desi Hasler is moved on?
Well, and this was the report that came out about a month or so ago where they were like talking about, could we get Craig Bellamy up here? Like, who is talking about that at the Gold Coast? Like, who is talking about that? We're going to repeat a lot of the stuff we said about Manly here. The thing Manly have is the advantage of being that establishment club in the centre of Sydney, attractive destination, really solid fan base. Gold Coast don't have any of that going for them.
Except for, this is the way I see the Gold Coast. I spoke about this on my show earlier in the week. I would want to get to a point at a club, and the whole place needs a complete restart, where I would say, if I ever hear any recruitment or retention agent or coach or CEO, anyone in our administration say, if you come to the Gold Coast, it's a great lifestyle, you're almost immediately sacked. Because that's the wrong mindset to have. When people go to Melbourne, there's not a single one of them saying, you're coming down here for the beautiful city of Melbourne. Even though Melbourne's a good city or whatever, when you go to Melbourne, you are going there to be the best version of yourself, and there is no if or any buts about it. The problem with the Gold Coast is, I'd be very confident, maybe not this year, maybe not last year, but for a long time, the selling point was, it's a beautiful place to live. Bring your family here, beautiful schools, rent's pretty low, beaches everywhere. And it's like, that's not the environment you need to make people dogs, absolute dogs committed to the cause. And I think that's their biggest concern at the moment. There's too many people there that, they leave a hard training session and they go, that sucked, but guess what? I get to go to the beach now, have a coffee, chill out, life's great. And that's what I think their biggest issue at the moment with the problem is, though, for Desi, is like, how can he keep his job? Because clearly this entire roster's not responding to him, and you're not going to move the whole roster on. You wouldn't have a club. So what do you do?
And you talk about his contract situation as well. 2026, but The Titans have, this is reporting from Code Sports, Titans have an option to sack him at the end of the year without the need to pay out the final year of his deal, and that deadline gets moved forward if the club are mathematically out of the race for finals football. Like, it is set up for him to fail.
And also, like, even that bit of information getting out into the public.
Yeah, again, we're repeating ourselves, aren't we?
Why? Why? Who does that, like, what I don't understand with that as well is, like, who does that help other than people's in position of power trying to protect their own job? Because you can keep that all internal, doesn't change. Like, that contract, whether that is public knowledge or not, doesn't change. So why is it out in the public? All you're doing is undermining the authority of your head coach that's trying to get you out of the bottom of the table. Doesn't make any sense, mate. I don't get it. Listen, we're going to go to a break. There's another coach under a bit of pressure. We'll get to him after the break. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We're here for Chemist Warehouse to get discounted prescriptions, save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Alrighty, Cowboys. Toddy Payten under a bit of pressure. Now, I'm a bit reluctant to do this one because a mixture of two things is that he's made the finals every year except for one since he's arrived. He's essentially a rookie coach, like he's in his first 3 or 4 years. He has, an aging veteran on $1 million that is in the middle that you would probably... Now, I'm not saying Taumalo is the main problem. There's obviously other problems as well with the error count, the defense, all that stuff. And so this Todd Payten one's less pressure for me. And also, Cowboys have a tendency to have these moments where they play so poorly that you're going, my God, I hope they don't win the spoon. And then all of a sudden you look up 5 weeks later and they're sitting in the top 4 and you're going, what the hell happened there? 2022 Dally M Coach of the Year as well, which, he definitely earned that. The strangest thing about Payten is I kind of feel like this team couldn't play more differently than what you would expect Payten to coach like. In his first year when they came second over the year, in the ladder, they had the best defence in the competition, I think. And that's the kind of rugby league that you'd think Payten would play. And so we all heard the stories coming out of North Queensland in his first year. It was the hardest ever preseason they'd done. And ever since then, though, their defence has just been, really poor. And they've just been a purely attacking focused side. And so the worry, I guess, I have for the Cowboys is that even if they do go on a run and they make the 8 and they make second week of the finals, the problem for the Cowboys is they are never going to win a premiership if this up and down style of rugby league is in their DNA. Like a little bit, similar-ish to the Broncos. I know they had a 2023 year where they were always, winning and got very close, but a little bit similar to the Broncos where, you can have these great big wins, but unless you can find some consistency, it's never going to happen for you. And so with Toddy Payten, I don't know what he does. You actually look at his team. He's got 4 or 5 Origin players, which is up there with, I think it's top 4 in the NRL for amount of Origin players currently playing in Origin.
All on long-term deals as well.
Yes.
All locked away.
Other than Reece Robson, who is moving on. And so it's like, it's not for roster shouldn't be the issue. Yeah, you could argue. Again, I think just the roster argument, the big elephant in the room is obviously you're paying Taumalo $1 million. And although he has been solid when he plays, unfortunately, you want him to be best on ground, essentially, every single week. But outside of that, yeah, it's a really, really tough one. What do you reckon, Maestro?
Yeah, the attitude thing's interesting because you're right. It's a lot of individual errors that are letting the Cowboys down. I don't know how much effect a coach has on that. 30 points a game is too many. There's no doubt about that. The core of this side is locked away. So Ruben Cotter's there until 28, did until 29. Rob Darby's there till 28. Scotty Drinkwater's still got 3 years left on his deal. And then you're going down Jeremiah Nanai's in that same position. So that's the core of your squad locked away. It's probably your leadership group as well. It's finding the pieces that are at an NRL level but aren't going to cost you a whole lot of money with not a lot of room in the salary cap. So the two big questions they've got to get sorted out is who's going to take over from Reece Robson at hooker and who's your partner for Tom Dearden down the track in the halves.
So they got some really, really good, really good halves coming through. So I don't know if that'll be that much of an issue, but I'm just looking at, okay, so Doggies, obviously they bucked the trend in regards to having like $1 million front rower. They bucked the trend. Raiders have Tarpane, Papali'i, Horsburgh, Young, you name it. Their front row. Their forward pack's the best in the game, in my opinion. The Storm have Big Nelson, Asafa Solomona. Stefano's currently a part of the Origin side. Josh King's been solid as anything. Then you go to Warriors. They've got Fisher Harris. They've got Barnett. Broncos. They've got Carrigan. They've got Haas. Sharks. They've got Adam Fanua Blake. the Roosters, Origin players. And so when I look at that top 8, what's the difference between them and the Cowboys? It is their forward pack.
Yeah.
It's their front row and their forward pack rotation. And they've got a few really good battlers in their forward pack, but they're just probably missing that one big dog that kills it every single week. And look, if you could get Taumalolo back at his peak, then he could be that big dog. He'd be one of the greatest ever. Seriously, Taumalolo at his best was one of the greatest forwards of all time, in my opinion. But the problem is, it's not like that at the moment. And so that's my big concern for the Cowboys is what do they do about that situation? Because it's not their only problem, but it is a glaring problem. Their other problem is obviously their commitment to defence. Across the board, it just seems like they're far less committed to grind a game out than most other sides. Okay, got some text here. The 32-30 first week of the finals game against the Sharks in 2022 was a big beginning of our poor defence. Making the 8 the past couple of years hasn't meant a lot knowing our defence was so poor. Now, got some text here as well. Boys, I'd be buying Owen Paddy if I was the Cowboys. I think Owen Paddy just re-signed. I'll be with you. I'm with you, though, mate. Owen Paddy, geez, he is super impressive. But I'm pretty sure he's locked up till 27. Pretty sure he's locked up. The Cowboys don't have the playing roster to win a comp at the moment. Oh, yes and no. Again, yeah, you could look at the forward pack, but listen, what if Taumalolo comes out and plays? I mean, for Tonga, Taumalolo was outstanding at the end of last year. If you can just get 10 good games out of him out of the back end of the year, then who knows what they could do, you know? So, yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. Just looking at some more. There's some ones from earlier. In regards to Manly, boys, could Cherry be the leak at Manly? No, I don't think so. Daly Cherry Evans, he's got too much integrity to be doing stuff like that because the thing is even if he's got totally off the CEO and, you know, whatever's going on there, you're only hurting your teammates. And as if DCE would be that low to, you know, hurt the teammates on the way out. Hi, Dana. What about Wayne Bennett under pressure? No finals in 2 years with the Dolphins. The Us will be lucky to make the 8. And now at the top of the list to be PNG coach. Is he too old? No way. I mean, Wayne Bennett, the Dolphins in their second years of existence were one game away from making the 8 last year. Then the first year, they have been, in the 2 years he was at the Dolphins, they were decimated by injuries. And then South Sydney, like, mate, the amount of injuries, I think they topped the charts again this year at one point for injuries. And when you actually watch them play, like any other coach, if any other coach had South Sydney right now, I reckon outside of Bellamy, they'd be on the bottom of the table. Any other coach, without many injuries they've had, I reckon they'd be on the bottom of the table.
And they're another one that's with the buys and all that sort of stuff. They'd be around the Manly Dolphins area if they'd played, if they've got that extra buy up their sleeve as well.
Yeah, so it's the Wayne Bennett one. Definitely don't think that. I definitely don't think that that's true. Howdy, Kempy, is the relationship with Peyton and Taumalolo still on rocky side? I haven't heard since the start of the year. I mean, I don't know. Like it. What I will say, it's never looked like it's been super good. Like I've never seen, you know, since he arrived and he did really, you know, kind of call out Taumalolo and I understand where Peyton was coming from. I really do, because when Peyton arrived to the Cowboys, the entire team relied on Taumalolo. Like it was, give the ball to Taumalolo. He is going to get us to win any games we do win. And so when Peyton came in, he was trying to go, listen, we're never going to win a comp just relying on Taumalolo. We have to spread the responsibility. And, you know, it was defense first, and one area where Taumalolo, you know, if you were to, you know, nitpick his game, you would say, okay, maybe in defense, he doesn't put as much energy as he puts into attack. I think where he erred with Taumalolo, and this is what Wayne Bennett's really good at, is that not every player is perfect. And there are certain players where you go, you know what, you're so good in attack that we're not going to rely on you to have the same effect in defense. Now, that doesn't mean you can be a 5 out of 10 in defense, but just be a 7 out of 10, and that's all good. And I think Peyton, as a rookie coach, went in there and said, no excuses for anyone. You all have to be at an 8 or 9 out of 10. And I think Wayne Bennett, he's like, I'll never forget the amount of times where, you know, I've told the story before, but me and Darius, in the middle of the week, we went out on Wednesday night to a nightclub. Wasn't a huge night, just a few beers, but it was a fun night. Me, Darius, Justin Hodge, Carmichael Hunt. The next day we walk into training. And we get called into Wayne Bennett's office, and we're like, what the hell? And he hits us up. He's got eyes and ears everywhere, Wayne Bennett. And he says to us, were you out last night? And obviously we tell the truth. We say, oh, yeah, we were out. And he was like, why were you out? And so well, we were out with Hodjo and Kay, they're senior players, blah, blah. And he was just basically said, listen, until you can do what Justin Hodges and Carmichael Hunt can do, you're not doing what they can do off the field as well. They've got permission to do what they want to do because they're delivering on the field. You don't. And I think that that's a really good example of not everyone needs to be treated the same. And I feel like that's probably where maybe the start of the relationship probably didn't get off on the best foot. However, I just don't have any evidence. I've got no proof to suggest that him and Taumalolo don't get along other than Taumalolo just doesn't look as eager as he used to look. Now, maybe that's injuries. Maybe that's not. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just age. Maybe it's the way he's battered his body. But it just is what it is. Okay, boys, Welsh, you're talking about the Raiders hookers. I find it funny that they've re-signed the current 2 and just signed Brayley for a couple of years. 3 doesn't go into 2. I understand what you're saying, but the beauty for the Raiders is you always need 3 good hookers in your top 30. They have somehow managed to get Starling, Paddy, and Brayley. One of them will be playing reserve grade. That is the best position in the world for the Raiders right now. And Ricky Stuart has developed so much as a coach. You know what? After the break, we're going to go deep dive into how great Ricky Stuart is. Anyway, back on the Ricky Stuart chat, we were just speaking about the genius of Ricky Stuart. His ability to get Brayley, Paddy, and also Starling to play all their best. Well, Brayley will hopefully play his best footy. Starling is playing his best ever footy. Paddy is the future. Brayley, a super experienced, really good 9. Like, the squad balance that Ricky Stuart has managed to put together, and his team, obviously, it is amazing. Like, the fact that they are about to go into a new year, yes, losing Fogarty, and I think in a perfect world, they would have hoped to keep him for another year. But the fact that they've got guys like Sanders coming through, Strange already there, these young guys in key positions with super amount of depth, with forwards, all this depth in the forwards, Ricky Stuart's improvement as a coach is almost second to none. It really is incredible what he has managed to achieve this year. Like, imagine being a coach that not only do you have it, it's harder to get marquee signings down to the Canberra Raiders. You've got a smaller population of league players in your juniors than both Queensland and New South Wales. I'm pretty sure, unless my math's terrible. You've got a smaller population to draw from your juniors. It's a harder place to recruit people down to. It's cold as anything, and then it's also hot as anything. And so you've got all these things against you as a club. And we look at some other clubs that are in far better areas to live in, far more appealing, way more juniors that are nowhere near on the level of where the Raiders are right now. And that's a testament to what Ricky Stuart has built there. And it's also a testament to giving a coach time to build a club, to build DNA with the club. And I think that, yes, it is. I understand that you could say, a lot of these other clubs don't have the luxury of time. And I also know that Ricky Stuart has always, no matter whether they've made the 8 or not made the 8, they've always been a competitive side. But it is a really good example of allowing a coach full reign to really, just ingrain DNA with the jersey. So anyone that puts on that Raiders jersey, you know exactly what you're going to get. And it's similar to the Storm to a degree. And I just think that Ricky Stuart, he deserves so much credit for where he has got this club to. And I'm just excited for the future because now he's got some of the best young stars in the competition. Imagine what the next few years are going to be like. Imagine what he's going to be able to build down there, especially if they start seeing success, especially if they start landing in the top 4 every year. All of a sudden, recruitment becomes easier. And I just think Ricky Stuart, for me, is, if he's not the Dally M Coach of the Year this year, he's at least in the top 3 coaches this year. It has been absolutely incredible. And I know a lot of people are talking about it, but I still don't think they get enough appreciation for the fact that there are a lot of people that had Raiders as wooden spooners this year. I never saw a Ricky Stuart side winning the spoon. There's just no way. But I also never predicted that they would go on and do what they're doing this year. Because right now, they've got the same amount of wins as the Bulldogs, I'm pretty sure. And so it is just incredible. I can't give them enough praise. And heading into the final series, they've actually got the most wins, actually. So right now, they've got 12 wins with the Bulldogs on 11 wins, the Storm on 9, and the Warriors on 10. That's amazing. And what's scary about the Raiders heading into final series, as long as they can keep up this form, or not even, just keep skating by and land in the top 4. When you've got a forward pack that is as good as theirs on paper, but also knows they're as good as they are now, that also has that swagger, that is also very confident that they can bash anyone that they come up against, that's a scary team to play in finals footy, because they just need 4 big games from their forward pack. 4 big games, and you never know what can happen. If they finish in the top 4, they get a prelim down in Canberra. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, is it as hard a trip maybe as New Zealand? Maybe not. But I tell you what, it's not that far off. I'll never forget when I was playing, going down to Canberra, it was a tough tough travel. And so I just look at the Raiders. The players deserve a massive rap. Ricky Stuart deserves a massive rap. The CEO, everyone involved. They've been super patient and allowed this club to build into what it is today. And it's an absolute credit to every single person there. We are going to head to a break. And then after the break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including previewing the round. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. We're currently having a 30% off everything at Grumpy sale. Go to grumpycoffee.com.au, grab your coffee today, buy it online, be in your house within 24 to 48 hours. If you're not happy, you can just shoot customer service and they can take care of you if there's any dramas. This sale ends this Friday. Do not miss out. It's the biggest sale we've ever had. Okay. And also, welcome to the Captain's Run. We're here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Panthers versus the Doggies, Thursday, 7:50, CommBank Stadium. Panthers team news. Yo, Cleary, To'o, Martin, Edwards all return after being rested last weekend. Sorensen drops out through suspension. Schneider and Luke Garner dropping to the bench after starting last week. Bulldogs team news. Crichton, King, Mann and Burton all return after missing the win over South during the Origin period. And Kiraz moves back to the wing. Galvin will play in number 14 jersey with Taft, Turpin, Wilson dropping out. What a game. Like, seriously, this is going to be an absolute belter of a game. And, the scary thing is, and look, maybe it was a one-off. Maybe they just got the boys revved up for the New Zealand Warriors. However, let's just imagine they haven't got revved up. Let's imagine that Ivan Cleary has basically prepared his season for around mid-season. They're going to start to, hit their straps. They're going to start to, and it would make sense, because when you've won 4 premierships, the last thing you want to do is, heavily load the front part of your season, because you're always going to conk out. And so you look at the Panthers, and I think it's their last 7 games. They've really only lost 1 or 2. And although it hasn't been pretty, it's actually, a lot of people still have them in their mind that the start of the year form is where they're at. But when you actually, as I said, you look at their last 7 games, they've only dropped 1 or 2. And so that's what's really interesting about this last month of footy. We could be witnessing them building into the back part of the year. If that is the case, we might have the biggest game of the year on our hands. Because if you take last week's performance and you plug in Yo, Cleary, To'o, Martin, Edwards, you have an absolute juggernaut on your hands. And for the Bulldogs side, I will say they have been winning still, but it has been nowhere near as clinical as earlier in the season. And I think Serraldo will be looking at this game going, boys, and maybe Serraldo's been building into this game too, Master versus Apprentice, Ivan Cleary versus Serraldo. But he'd be looking at this game going, okay, listen, we've been getting wins lately. We're on the top of the table. However, some of these games haven't been the most convincing. Here's our opportunity to get a real gauge of where we're at and show the rest of the NRL that we aren't just in-season good players, or we aren't in-season, dominant team, that when we get up against some of the top-tier sides with Origin players, we are just as good. We are just as good. Because I guess the biggest question of the Bulldogs, that even the biggest Bulldogs fans would say was, how are we going to go in finals footy? Can we go to that next level? Do we have the roster to go to the next level? I think a game like this is a perfect example to test that. It is the perfect opportunity to test, can this Bulldogs roster go to that next level of intensity that a top-tier roster can go to. And that's what I like about this game. It is going to be an absolute belter. And I actually think, the Panthers, I don't mind the odds for the Panthers. What do you reckon, Maestro?
Yeah, I think this is a big litmus test for them too, Kempy, because this is the marker they can lay down. We've got all our Origin stars back. Cleary's fitness, massive watch. after what happened in Origin. But if they're able to win this game, suddenly you're looking at, okay, not only are they going to make the top 8, but are they going to be a threat once they get there? Because at the moment, the Bulldogs are the benchmark along with the Raiders. So, yeah, I think as much as we're talking about the Bulldogs and can they do it against all these Origin stars, I think for the Panthers, this is, okay, we're still the reigning premiers here. We're, been the standard bearers for the competition, but we haven't shown it this year. This might be the opportunity against such high quality opposition.
Yeah, super interesting. So Panthers paying $2.21. I reckon that's a bit long for me. I'd have a bit closer in. This is a 50-50 flip for me.
Interesting to see the crowd that gets out there as well, right? Panthers been, getting people along to CommBank, but it's going to be full with the Doggies fans there, and be interesting to see the split on the sidelines as well.
What about Ivan Cleary? So he's got one against Webster. He's got one against Webster. He went over there and said, "Thank you." Got the apprentice done. And now Soraldo. I wonder
this is a big test.
Oh man, this is juicy. Soraldo versus Ivan Cleary. Master versus apprentice. What does Soraldo have up his sleeve for Cleary? And what does Cleary have up his sleeve? There was one thing last week that I thought Cleary did really well, is coming out of their own end on kick returns. They were spreading a lot, and he must have identified on video that Warriors have a tendency to kind of be a bit lazy on edges and kick chases. And I wonder what he's identified in this Bulldogs side as a weakness. Super interesting.
Could be similar, couldn't it? Do you think?
No, I think different. Well, the Bulldogs, the last issue they have is with kick chase. Yep. That's one of their strongest suits. Defense and line speed is one of their strongest suits, but with line speed there does come a worry that if you do miss one tackle, your whole set's gone then. Yeah. Like if you let's say you do a 2 pass and you get in behind the C defender, which is a 3 from the ruck, it is panic stations to try and get back that momentum. And so if you can find a chink in the armor of the Dogs, and that's where if he's got certain set plays for each set where they can get just one quick to play the ball, that ruins the whole Bulldog system, because the whole Bulldog system is about just completely suffocating you with line speed. But there's always a negative side to line speed, is if once you get up past the ball quickly, it's super hard to get back quickly. Whereas if you don't get up that far, you get back in a lesser amount. It's actually what the Storm used to do really well when, in the mid-2015s and around that era, where their line speed was okay, but it wasn't crazy. And you never actually saw a Melbourne Storm team really go out there to shot people. It was more just about how do we control the speed of the ruck and make sure that we don't miss any tackles. So I cannot wait for this. So Panthers versus Doggies, I cannot wait. It's going to be a massive clash. Let's head to a break. After the break, we'll continue to preview the round, and we'll also welcome the big fella, Horo. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Second hour done and dusted. Plenty talked about. We talked about coaches under pressure, Seabold, Desi, potentially Toddy Payton. We also spoke about, we previewed Panthers versus Bulldogs. We spoke about the Raiders, how well they're going. Plenty to talk about in the second hour. So make sure to tune into that belatedly on the podcast. You can make sure to subscribe. Got some text here. Hey, Kempy, Greg from Gundagai here. Just wondering why the show is called The Captain's Run and there's no Smithy anymore. You could use names such as Kempy Time or Winger. Just a thought. Well, I think it's strange for the listeners if we renamed it, because then people would think it's a different show when it's still half the same show. But in your head, bro, you just call the Resi Run. How about that? Panthers aren't as strong this week without the sexiest men in the league. Sorensen, he was huge for them in New Zealand. Without him, they don't win. He took out DWZ, scored down his wing, also scored a try. Yeah, I mean, Sorensen, truly one of the unsung heroes of this Panthers four in a row. Yeah, he got there after their first grand final. Truly, one of the most shrewd signing. Honestly, it might be one of the most shrewd signings ever when you think about it. Your Penrith Panthers, you go out and get a guy that essentially can't get a contract anywhere else, and he turns into a seriously important part of the Panthers side. So anyway, stay tuned. Horo joins us in the next hour. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, and the great Justin Horo joins me. How you going, brother?
The Beak. Enjoyed the show, mate. Cruising in before, listening to all the coaches chat.
What are your thoughts on Manly, Seabold?
Seabold, huge couple of weeks. Big fortnight. Huge fortnight. Mesteroff's just sort of tiptoeing around it, isn't he? Just say betting, the top three that you've mentioned, who's the favourite out of the three, do you think? Seabs, Desi.
I think Siebes.
You think Siebes?
Yeah, look, mate, they leaked everything.
Yeah.
Like, everything got leaked. Like, as I said earlier, like, imagine Seabold seeing, like, the literal number of minutes of meetings getting leaked. The team droppings got leaked. Tommy to centres got leaked. Like, that is from the deepest parts of the club that knows that stuff.
Mate, I've said this 1,000 times before, and we had some good years while I was there, a couple of good years and a bad year. It is how the club manages to has been successful for so long, whilst also being super toxic over the years.
Mate.
And Maestro's, he's shaking his head because he knows, like, there's always been just something like it. It's always a different something, and it's always a different someone. But it's like, I know, like, and Manly's not the only club, right? Mm. It's just that, it's standing out now because Manly are going through it. But
I will say, like, I'm trying to think of the last time I heard that much detail be leaked. Like, minutes of meetings, dossiers handed out.
Well, Tigers have been poor over
but, like,
the years,
actual
right?
minutes of meetings. Like, even with Tigers, it's, like, vague. Like, someone said something that was like, this is like Anthony Seibold had a meeting with every player for 7 minutes, and then some players weren't happy with it. Here's the 2 players that are getting dropped. Here's the superstar that's getting moved. It was like the full club's plan. Just, boom, being
Did you
told.
see the Turbo interview on 100% Footy? Yeah. That was tense, eh? Like, 100% Footy's almost become like more, what's the word? Like you watch 360 for tension and drama. I feel like 100% Footy's had them covered this year.
Yeah, they're heading into that direction. It's a good point, and like just moving with the times, I guess. And I guess it's hard for mainstream TV to compete with podcasts where we can sit down and fully break a game down. Whereas they're like, even if we wanted to do that, we're giving games 30 seconds each, which is just impossible.
Yeah.
Whereas we can give drama, little sound bites of 2 minutes each or something like that. But, mate, what about Desi? What are your thoughts at the Titans, mate?
You brought up some good points about the location and all that and that being a problem. I would have liked to have seen... Like, I'm really big on a full 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm really big on that. And I know it can be frustrating for fan bases. And when you're brought into situations like the Gold Coast Titans or who's the other team? The Dragons are sort of going through it a little bit with Flano and they're about 18 months into their stint. Benji into 18 months of his proper stint as, like, full-time first-grade coach. I always like to see a full 2 years and then... If there still aren't results, I'm really big on the magic round cutoff date. So, like, get through 2 years.
Yep.
All right, you've had 24 months to put together a roster or make changes that you deem that are going to get you results. And if it's not happening by magic round, then
gone.
That's it.
Yeah, I think they're not unique, but like a circumstance with the Titans is like they weren't going that bad when he took over. The Titans, they were sitting ninth, I think, 9th or 10th.
Yeah. And was that a part of because they weren't in the 8, that was the loophole they had in the contracts, like the clauses?
Well, I think they didn't actually execute it, but they did say they had it. Like, could have used it if they wanted to.
Gotcha. For Holbrook.
For Holbrook.
Yep.
But I think, like, with Desi, it's not like he walked into... Like, when you walked into the Tigers, or even the Dogs, for example, that first year with Serrato, like... He walked into a roster that was, not great, not really good.
Yep.
I think with the Titans, the tough thing is like that roster's good. It's a good roster. But I'm with you. I think give him till the end of the year. I will say though, like if he comes last, very hard to go into next year with him. If they come last this year,
yeah. What did they come last year? Second last, third last,
14th or 15th or something like that. So they've gone worse again.
If they do come last and they don't get rid of him, then it's like then you don't even get to magic round. It's like the first month.
Really, to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Toddy Payton, Cowboys.
Toddy Payton, I like Toddy Payton.
Yeah, same.
But also, like, it is what it is. Like, he's been a bit of a roller coaster with regards to results, hasn't he? So, and not to say I don't like Desi in that as well. Actually, by the way, I want to make that clear.
And
sure. Siebes, but it is the nature of the game that we play. Well, they choose to play anyway, and that's the stress that comes with it. So they're well aware of that. I like Todd Payton. I think, and I've said this all along since the start of the season, like you give coaches a bit of a leeway when they might take over a team and they've got to make some changes. I always was of the mindset at the start of the year, and everyone was talking about it for the Roosters because they were big name players. Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Kiri, Joseph Swali'i, Joseph Manu, Safili Tupanua, probably missing another couple there that we talked about with the Roosters. All these players moving on. It's almost like 1,000 NRL games. Todd Payton's had the same thing. Chad Townsend, Val Holmes, Cole Felt, Jake Granville, like a number of players, veteran players that have now moved on. And then whilst also dealing with unearthing the likes and getting the consistency out of the Jackson Purdues and Zach Laberts, who I think's been dropped for Jay Clifford this weekend. So, I'd like to see at least Todd Payton get through the end of the season and see if they can start getting some results at the back end before you start talking anything crazy with him as well.
Yeah, I think he's not on the same level as your Siebes and your Desies. I will say, like, Siebes is such an interesting one when you look at the ladder. Like, if he goes on a bit of a run, like, they could finish 6th or something. And then all of a sudden, it's like, why are we even discussing this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's the nature of the competition. It is so close. And just like we talk about with results for teams that are, sneaking around and, mate, if you all you've got to do to release the pressure valve, just knock out 2 or 3 of the best.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, what were we thinking? It's a good example of that. Like, there's a period there, Dragons are flying high. Flano, amazing, looks everything. And now all of a sudden, it's panic stations at the Dragons.
Yeah, heavy.
Just with how the season's going. Got some text here. Holbrook should have never been sacked. He had the Titans improving. Hasler hasn't done anything over a decade. Ride the back of Tommy Turbo 2021, and that's it. Give Holbrook his job back. Wow. Kempy, I've listened, but let's not forget how the Broncos treated Siebes to the point where the CEO had to ask a high-profile Broncos identity to apologise to Siebes for very hostile comments. He came to the Broncos as Coach of the Year, Mike. Yeah, look, I think there's two different things. How someone is treated compared to their results. Two things can be true. You could say he was treated poorly by someone that said something mean about him, but he also didn't coach very well at the Broncos as well. The two things can be true. Got some more text here. Kempy, I want to hear your thoughts and some notice on the penalty counts this year. Nobody has mentioned how Tigers are in the green. Roosters now being the most penalised team. Storm and Raiders rounding out the bottom 3. I do think that the honeymoon phase of the 6 again period has gone. It's over. And I do think there are more people looking at the 6 again calls and going, they're very hard to measure as to, was that the right call? Where's the consistency? It's the perfect penalty to have to be able to, like, as a ref, just call whenever you want with no speculation, with no, you never really see any replays on any of the networks on 6 again calls as to what happened. So as a viewer, you're just like, 6 again? I don't even know what happened. Go again. And so that's where we have really introduced an even grayer area in penalties. Because people try to say 6 agains aren't penalties. They're penalties, in my opinion, anyway. What do you reckon, mate? Has been more penalties, less penalties? What are you feeling about penalties this year?
Yeah, look, I love how they've quickened up the game and brought more fatigue into the game, but at the expense of accountability for the referees. And to your point, with a penalty, it's enough of a stoppage within a game where you can go, hey, wait a minute, like you can sit there and reflect on it. With the 6 agains, half the time you don't even know what it's for. Yeah. Unless you're like properly zoning in and concentrating on what the referees are saying, or you sort of, it's an obvious one, like a blatant one. The one that stands out, front of mind at the moment because of Origin, Latrell pulling the leg, which eventually led to a try in that game, which was the right call. But I think that's the confusing thing. And that's where they sometimes get away with it as well, because they are critical. If you look at the success rate of teams scoring off the back of them, or at least having a couple of them, it can be really frustrating and really taxing for teams. And sometimes it takes teams, 5 to 10 minutes to get their breath back before, they're able to recover. So, look, I feel like it's not changing. It's not going anywhere.
No way.
But,
no way.
It's almost going to take someone sitting down and someone start their own podcast. Here we go.
Yeah.
Start your own podcast. Call it the 7 tackle set or the 6 again. The 6 again podcast.
Yep.
And go through and watch every 6 again for us every week and dissect it and let us know.
Isn't Gus Gould's podcast called 6 Again?
6 Again?
How dare you, sir?
Copyright. Gus is,
right.
I don't want to get, Gus has been.
No, the Goldfather.
He's been on fire of late and getting
wow.
people. I don't want to get on the bad side of
No
Gus.
way, no way. All righty, we're going to head to a break and then we're going to continue to preview some rugby league. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee, where we're having the biggest sale ever, 30% off everything at grumpycoffee.com.au. It ends this Friday. Once this Friday comes, it is done. So make sure to go to grumpycoffee.com.au, grab your coffee. We've got pods, we've got whole bean, we've got ground, we've got it all. Order it online, come to your house in the next 24 to 48 hours. Skip a scope. We've got Sea Eagles versus West Tigers, Friday 6 p.m, Brookvale Oval. Tommy Turbo moved to centre. Hopper Whitey takes his place at fullback. Garrick shifts to the wing. Saab drops out. Waddell replaces Olakawatu. Lodge starting in the front row. Tavanga replaces Croker, who is under concussion protocols, with Simpkin wearing the number 14. And the Tigers, Mason replaces the injured Buller at fullback. Luai returns to 6 and Fainu at halfback. What do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, Fainu to halfback. I like that. Like I've always been of the opinion, like the 7 and 6, it really doesn't matter as much as long as there's like clear communication between who does a lot of the stuff around, particularly with the forwards and the end of sets.
Yeah,
that's really what's important. Yeah, funny. He gets his first opportunity coming up against Manly. I remember when he first was coming through the grades, everyone at Manly was just raving about him and his brother Sam Weller, who I think Sam Weller's probably played his best footy over the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Just going back to the interview with Tommy on Monday, I love that he's pissed off.
Yeah,
he was clearly frustrated, and that's there's a part of that where he I think there's a level of frustration. With his own body and his limitations. It's the decision that had to be made, and I hope the boys can rally at Manly and have a huge performance and he still be effective.
Yeah. I think he'll slip right in. One thing you can say about Tommy Turbo, he's not going to sook. You know that.
No, not at all. I'm not worried about that.
Yep.
I just hope the body still, with the little added rest, limited opportunities or lack of kilometres running back and forth, sideline to sideline, setting the defensive line, all that stuff can actually bring out the best version of Turbo right now.
Yep.
And he can have some nice touches, some nice moments. Maybe puts, scores one or puts Gaz over one as well. So excited to see what that looks like on Friday night.
Do you think, does Tigers target him? Do Tigers go, let's make him make 25 tackles?
No way.
Okay.
Nah, I think that's historically, and that's always been the edge where there is more traffic.
Yep.
So I've said this, even though I like the change that at least they've made a change to help prolong his career, sort of try to win back the season. I would have loved to have seen him go to the wing.
Okay.
I would have, that would have been my decision if I was running the team. But this is a step in the right direction, and he's probably going to have to do more defence than I would have liked.
So I reckon he's gone to centre because they probably do the least amount of Ks as an outside back, and where if he goes to wing, he's still probably going to be doing similar-ish Ks to fullback, and that's what gives you soft tissue injuries. But the problem with Tommy is like, he has had shoulder problems before. So the more defence you do, the more chances you could do that.
And a few contact injuries this year as well. The MCL one, looked like it was a contact injury. So I just look, at the end of the day, I just hope he can, we're at round 17. And if Tommy Turbo doesn't miss another game until round 27, I don't even care if Manly don't make the finals.
Yeah, it's so true.
You know, like
field.
I just want him on the field.
Yep.
I want him, punching out 80 minutes each week. So then we can go into a preseason next year, and he's got some Ks under the legs, just in a different position, and then they can reassess it at the back end of the year.
Now, Tigers. I wouldn't say he's under pressure, Benji, but the concern is although all the progress they've made, they still are only a couple wins off the bottom of the table. They just haven't managed. There's only one stat that matters, and is getting the win. Where do you have the Tigers at the moment? Like, is it a bad year, a year where so much could have gone right? Where are you at with the Tigers?
Yeah, mate, they get a huge pass. They get a huge pass for me.
Okay.
Like with everything that will happen with a young emerging star like Lachlan Galvin, Benji, like I was just saying before about the 2-year period, Benji's one almost gets extended for. There's a part of me that wants to see the back end of the third year now because he's got to go. He would have gone into this season with a plan and also understanding. Like there was rumours about this for a while, but you always want to probably plan glass half full.
Yeah.
Thinking, can I convince this young kid to stay at the club and team up with Jerome? And they were getting results at the start of the year. It's completely thrown everything out of whack. I want to see what Latu looks like in the 7 jersey this week. And I think the best thing with Latu now I've seen over the last couple of weeks, it's almost a win-win. If he ends up being a long-term partner with Jerome, that's awesome at the 7-6.
Yep.
Worst case scenario, he's a gun 14.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. I think he'll be great. I just hope he can stay on the field. Just the thing with rookies is you just need him on the field week after week. You can't have the stop and start, injury here, injury there. Not to say he's not injury prone or anything like that, but
he's had a few niggles though.
Yeah,
and that comes back to conditioning for him.
And so you got to make sure that his body's in good nick. He can just play some footy over a long period of time because that's no matter how good your coach is, no matter how much training you do in the preseason. The only way to get better at rugby league is playing each week.
Yep.
It really is. So hopefully he can stay on the field. It will be interesting if he does land in that 7 jersey. The good thing is you've got a world-class 6 for sure. Like, I reckon Luai can play good enough at 7, but I still think he's an out-and-out better 6. And so that'll be a huge win for their roster if Luai can play exactly how he wants to play and Fainu can be the one leading him around the block. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, Tigers, because the tough thing is right now they've got 5 wins and the Titans have 4 wins. And so it's just like, I'd be devo for them if for some crazy reason they ended up in the bottom 2 or 3. Because I feel like, I'm with you, mate, I feel like their season, when you actually watch them play, they have improved so much this year and managed to withstand, to a degree, one of the craziest bombshells we've seen in a very long time.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And then you're looking at it the other way. Like if you can compare them to the Titans, then you go up the other way as well. And you're looking, the Penrith Panthers are in 8th with 6 wins.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like they're a different beast because of the 4 premierships and the roster that they've got. And if they can play some meaningful footy together after Origin, then that's different. But they're only 1 win off the Panthers as well.
It's just this ladder is so bizarre. You are 2 wins from a good year. Like the Tigers are literally a few wins from a great year to a few wins from a devastating year. It's just mental, absolutely mental. Okay, let's get into the next game, shall we? The Knights v. the Raiders. Knights team news. Hastings replaces Sharp in the halves. Sharp ruptured spleen and lacerated kidney, so hopefully he's all right. Jeez. Saifidi returns for the first time since for his calf injury, round 11, pushing Croker to the bench. Raiders, Sasungi replaces Young, who's being rested with an ongoing groin issue. Noah Martin joins the bench. Love this from Ricky, resting Hudson Young. Definitely could see he needed a bit of a rest on the weekend. How do you see this one, mate?
Yeah, the Knights were so much better last week, but their best player all year has been Fletcher Sharp, so it's going to be a huge loss. That's a nasty injury too. It's very hard to compare that to anyone because, it's a very rare injury that you see, especially over here. I've heard of it over in the NFL, and it's not great for some of the NFL players that have got it, and that's due to contact with like helmet to kidneys and stuff like that. Yeah. So hopefully Fletcher can get back out.
Well, we've just got an update here, actually. Yep. This is from the Knights media manager. Sharp was released last night and is en route home today. He's recovering well, but all his focus is health and not his football return date.
Wow.
So that's good at least.
That's good and also worrisome. Like they're not even talking return date because it must be super serious. And he's only just been released today. When was the game? Sunday? Saturday?
Oh, he's released last night. That would have been last night.
So 3 or 4 nights in hospital.
But they said he's recovering well.
Okay.
They said he's recovering well. So
yeah, I love him. I love him as a player. Got to meet him last year at the back end. Just a great kid. Just a guy you want to root for, and he plays the game the right way. So hopefully he can get back on the field. If not this year, come back fully healthy next year. Canberra, they're the form team. They've got a nice little run. Bit tricky last week against the West Tigers where, they scored early, looked like they were really going to roll the Tigers, but the Tigers showed some good fight. So I think this will be similar.
Yeah, okay. So you reckon the Raiders come out early?
I just like that, Canberra should beat them.
Yep.
But I think Newcastle will get a little bit of confidence out of the win last week and playing at McDonald's Jones, similar Friday night.
This is a super early call and don't have enough information for it. The only worry I have with the Raiders is like that fatigue at the back end of the year. Did they just start the year so well? I don't think this is the case. It's just a potential thing happening. I just worry, do they Do they start? They've been so aggressive, so dominant for so long with this season.
I always anticipated a rough game against the Tigers for a couple of reasons. One, it was their first bye for the season. And second, it was Big Papa's milestone game. They're on a 2-day Larry 100% after that.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Like the celebrations.
That's true.
And the amount of schooners that would have been drunk to celebrate Big Papa's milestone.
Yeah.
Ricky would have been involved as well.
Of course he would have been.
The whole crew would have been there. Yeah. So I always accounted for that next game being a bit rough and they'll be better for the run.
I don't mind that. All right, going to head to a break. After the break, we've got some breaking news. Stay tuned. Oh, welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Go to grumpycoffee.com.au. Grab yourself some coffee because right now we've got 30% off everything, and it ends on Friday. Okay, some breaking news. The Broncos have re-signed Karapani and also signed Grant Anderson from the Melbourne Storm. And what is super interesting about this one is that you would have to assume that the Broncos have gone, okay, 2 outside backs, most likely landed, I'd say Karapani around the 200 mark, 250 maybe over that period. Grant Anderson anywhere from 3 to 4. And so maybe they've taken that money that they would have spent on Selwyn and gone, we can actually get 2 guys for that price that may not necessarily reach Selwyn's heights, but can get the job done. I love this signing from the Brisbane Broncos. I think it's outstanding. Yeah,
it's a must too. They're so top heavy. They've got so many stars that they've re-signed over the last couple of years, and then still. It feels like Payne Haas only just got re-signed a couple of years ago, but then obviously he's coming up around November 1.
He got upgraded, I think.
Oh, upgraded.
Yeah,
okay.
I think the issue was they'd re-signed, years ago or whatever, but that his management or whatever the deal wasn't happy with his current deal, so they just upgraded him within the frameworks of the deal. Yeah, I think anyway.
Yep. So then when you factor in Walshy, Paddy, Payne currently, Ezra got topped up. They let everyone know about Reynolds and Katoni. It's an obvious one. Like you get a 2-for-1 deal with regards to Karapani and Anderson, rather than signing Cobbo. Then unfortunately for Cobbo, he'll be on his way.
Yeah, it looks like it. No, I think it's smart from the Broncos. They just got to get their salary cap back in whack because, these days, if you're paying you've got your fullback, let's take him out of the outside back consideration. But if you're paying a winger and a centre huge money, that smashes your salary cap to pieces.
Yeah,
you've really got to be paying your fullback big money as the main guy, and he's got to be delivering. And your centre and wingers, they've got to be on around probably 3 to 4 in a perfect world, maybe 5 to 6 if they're like a superstar.
Tony Staggs. So what's the trim? Like he would have had to take a trim
because
he was on huge money.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm being too generous here, but I reckon he's down to about 500. I wouldn't sign him for 7. I wouldn't sign Tony Staggs for 700K.
Yeah, I'm going to meet halfway on you. I reckon 600? He would have got done for about 600. Because it was reported he was on about 800 a couple of years ago, wasn't he? When
potentially.
He did the big one. But that was also remember there was chat around him potentially playing 6 as well?
Yeah, because they were desperate for some halves.
So they was like, all right, we'll sign you as a centre, but you could play 6 at some point.
Yep.
So
and he made Origin during that time as well.
6 a good respectful number for both because he's all heart. He goes out and has a crack.
Yeah, with Staggs, he just consistency can be a little bit of a problem for him. He's actually been pretty good, but sometimes he just defensively his reads aren't great. So if you could get him for 500, I'd love it. If you get him for 600, I get it. I understand it.
Because you don't want to pay him 7.
Definitely don't want to pay him 7.
Fair enough.
I don't think so. To be honest, I think unless you are one of the best outside backs in the competition when it comes to wing or centre, you shouldn't be on anything. You shouldn't be on 7. I think Bizza, for example.
I'd pay more for wingers than centres in the modern day.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think Bizza, for example, last year when we heard all those whispers about some frustrations, I think he was on 600 at that time. And he's the best in the game. How much would you pay for Bizza?
I think we've talked about this because I factor in everything. Like he's like an extra front row, so I even treat him up to $1 million. Big and the off-field stuff. Never does anything wrong.
Yep.
Beloved by all his teammates.
A
huge social media presence and advertisement and all that. I reckon, it wasn't talked about. I reckon Penrith for sure sorted him out.
100%.
And I hope they did.
I know Bizza.
Nothing confirmed. Haven't heard anything. That's my gut feeling.
I do too because and I know Bizza came out and said there was no dramas, no issues, but I just wonder whether. There wasn't any dramas, but I just wonder whether the management and the club were having a bit of tension. And so I wonder whether the manager, and this is speculation, guys, I've got no evidence for this, just put it out a little bit to put a bit of pressure on the club to go, come on, boys, you don't want to enter this fight.
Yep.
And I reckon Penrith did the right thing. I agree with you. And I think Penrith deserve praise for that by doing the right thing and paying Bizza what he's worth.
100%.
Okay, now let's get to some games here. Broncos v. the Warriors. Broncos v. the Warriors. Huge game for both sides. Unchanged from the 17 that beat the Sharkies, with Selwyn Cobbo amongst the reserves. Warriors, Kossi comes in for DWZ. Berry returns from a hamstring injury in the centres. And Capel returns after being rested last week, shifting Halasima back to the bench. How do you see this one, mate?
Are your boys back?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
You obviously would have watched the game on the weekend.
Yeah, I liked them.
You liked the first half?
No. Like the 7 tackle sets, 3 or 4.
Yuck.
Went like after the game, because we caught it here. Me, Sugar, and Adam Blair caught it. And in calling the game for the first half an hour, it felt like they'd made so many mistakes. And I looked down at the completion rates. It was because they had poor endings to the sets.
Yep.
And it wasn't only Walshy and Ezra who come up with a bad kick.
Reno
got lucky with one as well. That ended up being a penalty. So once they fixed that up in the second half, geez, they looked unstoppable.
I also thought in the first half, which I think they changed in the second half, is they were doing a lot of Paddy Carrigan in first receiver, and it was too slow. Like the defence was getting to them. And so in the second half, if you go back and watch it, you'll see they took Paddy out of first receiver and were just getting quick ball and long ball to Reynolds and skipping out that middleman. And I thought they were attacking, because they actually had most of the field position against the Sharkies. The Sharkies actually had barely any tackles in their 20. They just, any time that they made a break, they scored.
Yeah, from 30, 40 out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the Broncos, their attacking structures were so poor in the first half. They tweaked it a little bit, got better in the second half. The Warriors, look, I just think it was one of those games that just didn't seem to work out for them. I think Metcalf was clearly injured at some point in that game. I think that they're going to be looking for a big bounce back against the Broncos.
Yeah, and when you lose Murata, who's super versatile for him, like he's played for the Kiwis at the centre position now. He probably couldn't do that now. That's when he was a little bit lighter. He's in the front row for this game, but they lost Murata with the broken nose. And then obviously Dallin, Kurt Capewell's their swingman. He's the guy that can move around for him. He wasn't playing in that game.
Yeah.
So having him back, tough game. Really looking forward to watching this game.
There's always usually a massive New Zealand Warriors fan base in Brisbane as well.
It'll be a huge crowd.
Huge crowd. I reckon 41,000.
I'll go 40 right on the dot.
Okay. All righty. How long we got here, Maestro? We'll break and we'll come back. We're going to break. We'll make sure to come back because we've got Dragons v. the Eels. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. And don't forget the run home with Joel and Fletch. Bunch of grubs. Mark Hughes, the Grub Show, the Grub Run Home. No, just don't forget the Run Home with Joel and Fletch. They got some huge guests. Mark Hughes and Max Jorgensen from the Waratahs will be joining them. So make sure to join Joel and Fletch after the show. It's an award-winning show. Oh, has it won any awards yet, the show? Surely it's got some kind of awards, the Run Home.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Heaps of awards.
Heaps of awards. There you go. Award-winning Run Home with Joel and Fletch. Okay, let's get into it. Dragons v. Eels, Saturday, 5:30. Corey Allen, Tui Pelotu, the money man, return on the wing from hamstring injuries. Val Holmes also returning to the centres from origin duty. Sua named to return from an ankle injury, and Viliami Fafita joins the bench for his first game in the NRL this season, with Loco Pacifica Tonga dropping to the reserve grade. Eels team news, Dylan Brown returned from suspension, shifts Joash Papali to the bench. Will Benzini suspension means Jordan Samrani returns in the centres. So Riley Smith is missing for 2 games through suspension. What do you reckon, Scope?
Geez, they've done well this year, Jason Riles, with the squad that he was being given, and made some huge changes. One of them's going to be playing against him in the skipper, Clint Gutherson. He was the heart and soul for the team, for Parramatta for so long. But man, Isaiah Yongi,
mate,
far out. He is a gun.
He's so good.
Do you know who we were chatting? And I was chatting to Big Willie Mason about him a couple of weeks ago. Do you reckon he's got a bit of Carmichael Hunt about him?
You know what? He does have a right foot that moved. Now I imagine him with that right foot. It's not as dramatic as Kay's right foot, but it's a fair
less
shout.
Less about the step, more about a bit of a small stature, just a goer, relentless.
Yeah,
sort of hit the scene, good engine.
Yeah,
also pretty decent passer as well.
Yeah, I can see that. I tell you what, I think you pronounce it Yongi. So I've been corrected multiple times. So it's Yongi, like with a Y. Again, apologies if I'm incorrect, but I literally only recently got the right way, Yongi, pretty sure. It's not getting spoken about enough. We've got a rookie fullback in a key position that's killing it, and I feel like barely anyone's talking about it. Like, I don't feel like he's getting the raps that he deserves, because right now it's between Yongi and Nwanga Nitawase for Rookie of the Year for me.
Yeah, Marky Mark. So he only got a game last year as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Yongi's.
Okay, fair enough.
I think he's going to be a 10-year player. If they play. I don't know what he signed for, but whatever he's on at the moment at Parramatta, and I'm sure they're having conversations about extending him. He is going to be an absolute gun. Answer
this then: if Ponga keeps playing the way he is, and Walshy is up and down injuries or whatever, does Yongi get a crack at the Queensland fullback position next year?
Oh, next year? Well, I love the 24-month rule for the Origin. I think seeing a full another season. That's where I sort of put Jackson Purdue in that bracket as well. But it'll be tough too, because they're not going to play. They're not going to play finals. The Parramatta Eels. They've got huge decisions around what they're going to do with the six.
The reason, whether you agree or disagree, it's more to drive home the point. Queensland have gone from apparently all this depth in a key position of Ponga and Walsh, where it's like, man, we have and Brimo, obviously Brimo has gone to England now. When it's like all of a sudden, that's how crazy rugby league is. It's like that depth is, Walsh is fighting his way back to form, but, he's been injured, and Ponga, his form hasn't been great. All of a sudden, it's like a couple injuries and the depth is no longer there. It's just a strange situation.
Kalen could be playing for the Kiwis soon too. Who
Mate,
knows?
I tell you what, I personally think Kalen will be in Union. He'll be in rugby union. And he will play for the Kiwis, surely. I
hope he plays for the Kiwis.
You reckon it'll be next year? You know what? I reckon it'll be next year.
Depends on how this series goes. I've always said that from the game one. Like, if the series doesn't go their way, and for whatever reason Queensland don't win this series, then I think he might have a crack at it.
Okay, we just got totally sidetracked. Dragons versus Eels. Dragons desperately need the win. The problem is the Eels are giant slayers to a degree. With when you look at all the outs they've had. Look, I'm backing the Dragons to get the job done, but Eels are a team you can never count out these days, which is it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, and it's the Zach Lomax and Clint Gutherson against their former clubs, two huge players for their clubs for the last 5 years. The X-Cup. And Zachy, did he have like a broken foot and still kick the field goal against them to win at the start of the year?
That's hate.
That's how bad he wanted it.
That's hate if I ever saw it. A broken foot and you're kicking field goals. Okay, Dolphins team news, Rabbitohs versus the Dolphins, or Dolphins versus the Rabbitohs. We won't go through the team news. We'll just get straight into the chat. How do you see this one, mate?
Yeah, Souths are a dangerous team, I think, at the back end of the season. The only thing, Souths are the most injured team over the last 18 months to key players, for sure. Like, no one's got more excuses when it comes to injuries than Souths.
Do you believe in the curse of the new
training
ground?
New training it must be. It might be something. It might be something to do with the training facility in the ground. Surely.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? It's so bizarre. I tell you what is scary, though. Rabbitohs at full strength with Cheese in their side and Keon in the middle, mate, they are going to be a problem for oppositions.
I hope Keon plays for Game 3. I reckon he's got to be in there
somewhere. Surely.
The Dolphins, that was, it was always, they weren't always going to win every game by 50, so that was a bit of a wake-up call for them. And Suncorp Stadium against South, against a fully stacked South, it's a good game. It's a coin flip.
Yeah, I agree. Alrighty. Storm v Sharks, the Craig Cup. It's the Craig Cup. Storm v Sharks. Who do you see winning this one?
As long as the weather's fine down there, this is where they do their best work, Melbourne. And plus they get Xavier Coates back for those important +1, +2 carries. They're a weird team right now, Cronulla.
Mate.
Like, they look like, calling that game against the Broncos, they look like they were on fast forward in the first 20, 25 minutes.
Yep.
And then as soon as they lose momentum, they can look like the worst team in the competition.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? Like, they looked like, their defence was incredible, their line speed was incredible, their ability to pick teams. I mean, Hines in the first half, like, I know a lot of people focus on his last 10 minutes, and rightly so. You should be critical. He's getting paid $1 million. He's in the number 7.
For sure.
But Hines in the first half was unbelievable. Like try assist, line break assist, his try that he scored. And then just in the second half, they lose momentum. And it's almost like as a team, they all just lose confidence. It's like they just, and I just wonder, we've spoken about in our podcast, like, do they just lack a bit of, I can't even say the word, we'll get fined, but they just lack a little mongrel of just some spite in their side. They're almost too nice is the wrong word because they're tough. They got guys like Adam Fanor, Blake, McInnes, but I just want them to be spiteful. Yeah. I want them to be spiteful.
You know, he's a super underrated player from, when he's playing and he's firing and playing well. When Teague Wilton went down on the left-hand side, they looked like they were going to go left edge, then right edge, then left edge, then right edge. And Teague Wilton goes down at the 25-minute mark. Calhoun comes on. And I was thinking back to it when they had that sort of checkered middle part of the season as well. Teague Wilton missed about a month of footy as well during that period.
Well, Teague Wilton was tearing our right side to pieces in that first half. Like, we couldn't touch him. So it's a great shout. In regards to the Storm, here's a question for you. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think we should be hypercritical of the Storm because they're having a solid year. But do you think they're escaping a little bit of criticism?
They're so sloppy. They're so sloppy right now. And everyone takes the mickey out of Bellamy because he gets up and moves around and that.
But I get it.
They're nowhere near playing to their standards, and it's complacency, mate. Yeah. It is, because they know they're good. They know they can flick a switch at any point in the back end of the season, and they're getting enough wins. But Bally, everyone within the club will be furious with the way and how sloppy they've played against certain teams.
You know what the number one evidence is that Bellyache's not happy? There's no way he plays his Origin players in a backup if he was happy with how they're travelling this far this season.
Point.
And I've had a bit of pushback from Storm fans because I still have Storm as the number one premiership heavyweights.
Yep, agreed.
But I'm just so surprised that there's been no real critical talk about the Storm when they've been sitting fourth for a lot of the year and they're the premiership favourites. Like, in a year where the standard of footy hasn't necessarily been incredible, they've been a bit sloppy. So
it's their unforced errors. That's the problem.
And they're just trying to score all the time.
Yeah, if you remove that, then you feel like they'll get it together.
Well, the first 20 minutes against the Rabbitohs, they were unstoppable. So hopefully they can find it this week. Alrighty, got to go to break. See you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, Titans v Cowboys. Titans v Cowboys. What do you reckon, Scope?
I think Cowboys. No Jaden Campbell. Too big of an out.
Okay. I don't know. Flip a coin. Overs, unders. Overs, unders.
You're fatigued. We haven't even got to the end of the round yet. You're fatigued by the back end of that game. You have zero interest in the Cowboys versus Titans, do you?
Over, unders, 80 points.
Oh, overs, points.
Wow.
Yeah, points. Okay. I reckon they're going to score. There's no defense in either of them.
Okay, we're going to make sure to stay tuned. We'll see you next week.